The world has been saved. Because I need a place to publish an article. Keywords of the novel. Full-face Demon Mentor no pop-ups, Full-face Demon Mentor TXT complete collection download, latest chapter reading of Full-face Demon Mentor. Chapter 1. Misalignment Calling to God. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Misalignment Calling to God when, the sound of a clock that is about to crack a person's brain. It's early morning. Cha-Yu opened his eyelids while half asleep and half awake, and the golden ceiling of the cell entered his view. On the third day of being arrested. A burning pain all over the body. Grasping his teeth and slowly getting up, he carefully moved the white chain to minimize its contact with the body. Be careful, he has repeatedly experienced the power of this cross chain soaked in holy water. The chain is made of real silver, with a translucent chicken blood stone embedded in every section, making it an excellent anti-evil artifact. Hiss, Icha's exposed forearm touched a chicken blood stone and instantly burned a small blister. Chaos above. He suppressed the pain and gently adjusted the position of the shackles. Chicken blood stone can suppress physical strength, while light holy water and order true silver can block his innate disorderly power. The shackles of imprisonment, made of such expensive raw materials, can be used to capture and control chaotic plane creatures through multiple processes such as hammering, grinding, carving, inlaying, consecration, and oiling. For example, controlling a demon. For example, he. To be honest, I have no idea why I am here. 3 days ago, while walking his hellhound, he fell into a plane fissure. Upon waking up, I found myself transported to the main material plane occupied by humans, losing freedom, power, and dogs. A human wearing a hood told Aika that he was about to become a sacrifice to the angels, so he was thrown into this expensive prison. A sacrifice for angels. After thinking about this statement, it doesn't make sense. The energy opposition between angels and demons is true, but both have been in a long period of peace for 7,000 years, managing their respective affairs in the source of order and the chaotic hell, and living in peace. Angels calling for demon sacrifices from humans is equivalent to tearing apart the ceasefire in the most hasty way. What reason do those dull and dogmatic guys with boring tastes have to do such a thing? If it's targeted at him personally, it's even less likely. Icha is both a demon and a scholar. There is probably only one demon like him in the world. Studying the power fields and energy guidance methods of the 9 planes, and then writing his insights into a manuscript, walking his dog, is all he does. Such a guy cannot have any enemies. By the way, in his eyes, demons are just a kind of existence that utilizes the power of the disorderly realm to reside on the chaotic hell plane. His biggest conflict with others was when he had a small argument with the angel Courtyard across the plane after writing the 6 applications of power domain theory in Will Spell. Even this conflict made him friends with the angel Courtyard, often secretly scheduling academic discussions. Thinking of this, his gaze crossed the cage and looked towards the narrow iron window on the wall. Today was originally a day for academic discussion. Courtyard should have discovered that he was missing. At the moment of falling into the fissure of the plane, he sensed the energy traces of the law commonly used in human mantras. Following the clues, Courtyard should be able to easily find this place. He looked at the magic formation on the refined gold floor, where all the restrictions were set against his disorderly power. If an angel came, it would undoubtedly be easy to break through and rescue him. He looked out the window again. There was only a suppressed pitch black outside the window. Nothing he expected happened. 12 o'clock has already passed. 6 hours later, he will be taken away and tied to a cold altar, with humans wielding knives and falling. His soul, which should have been dedicated to academia, will return to chaos. It seems that the angel will not come. He withdrew his gaze, condemning in his heart that this guy was either not righteous enough or not smart enough. We had to take a risk and use the final escape method. Fortunately, the knowledge he loved gave him the last resort. That's it, summoning the spirit. Cha's gaze fell on the intricately constructed and expensive anti-demon chain in his hand. Anti-demon, but not anti-human. Holy water, chicken blood stone, precious metal, and the limitations of demon chaos power are also excellent materials for casting human laws and spells. Thanks to years of accumulation, he happens to remember a little bit of legal magic. In a book he read, he mentioned the method of praying to the human god to make his voice heard. At the moment, he happened to need his voice to be heard. As the name suggests, human laws and spells place great emphasis on procedures. Summoning humans and gods requires the blood to represent dedication and clarify identity. As she reminisced, she gritted her heart and bit through her left finger. The malicious transformation curse in his body is no different from humans in terms of appearance and physical strength. The skin easily cracked between the teeth, and a foul-smelling liquid gushed out. Dip it in blood, sit halfway, and apply the mark representing the summoned god on the pure gold floor. A bull head mark. In the book, it is mentioned that this represents the destruction of the Hand of Destruction, Iva, one of the 12 main gods of humanity. This choice was considered by him. It is rumored that Ivan Mimi was one of the wandering demons of Chaos Hell. 450 years ago, for some unknown reason, he descended upon the main material plane where humans were located and became the god in charge of destruction and chaos. If the rumors are true, it should be much easier for Iverman, who is also a demon body, to communicate with other gods. I haven't seen this fellow member of the same clan before, but since he's in chaos, he probably doesn't have much reason to refuse such an urgent request. Cha placed his hands on the bull's head marker, arranged the real silver chain into an inverted triangle representing destruction and disorder, with a chicken blood stone at each corner, and whispered the prayer in human language. He suppressed his inner emotions and waited quietly for something to happen. After a while, the law energy in the cell fluctuated. The black and white fluff began to condense from the air, with light and shadow flashing, outlining a semi-transparent figure of a graceful woman. It worked. Cha breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the figure slowly emerging, a hint of doubt surging in his heart. The image of Ivern in the book is a broad-shouldered, tall, half-bull and half-human figure. The goddess in front of me looks petite and graceful, although she also has horns. It is very different from the image in the book. Why call me? The goddess arrogantly tilted her head, revealing her smooth and graceful neck. She tilted her face and looked at him first, then frowned and stared at him, devil's body. You're not a mortal. As the words fell, the translucent figure of the goddess flickered, the air was swept open, and a warm breeze rushed towards her face. When Cha turned her head to avoid the sudden impact, and then turned around, she saw a beautiful woman with long horns already appearing in her physical form. She wore a light purple long dress and dragged herself to the ground, covered in a faint divine light. This is the true essence of God, descending before him. Although it is a god, it is just a human god, so Cha was not overly surprised, just a little relieved in his heart. Very good, it seems that she values this very much, so there is a high probability that she will not refuse his request. The Hand of Destruction Ifo is destroyed. I am your fellow race, the demon Icon-Syncades. As you can see, I am currently in a little trouble. He gently raised his hand and gestured, Chaos is above, if you are willing to help me. I can give you a book I have written, such as Management of Beliefs and Energy Diversion of Faith or The Charm of Demons. After all, I heard that your popularity in the world is not high, and your followers are decreasing day by day, which is quite like being squeezed out of the 12 main gods by the new wild gods in the end. I think it's better not to say these words. I would be very grateful. The goddess's expression became strange. I am not Iverman. He has been summoned, and today I will temporarily respond to his call. Convene. Where are we going? All the demons have been recalled to the chaotic hell. The goddess's gaze swept over him. I heard it was for the end of the war. The spell system, energy domain system and rules, and species structure in the book have all been severely modified or privately designed for creation. Not strictly following D&D modules or typical religious biological laws. The reference is the Pathfinder module plus Neil Gaiman's dramatic religious system. But it's okay if I don't know. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Blood Servant. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Blood Servant The Apocalyptic War. Cha felt like his mind was buzzing for a moment, and he tugged at the corners of his mouth to say something. In the end, all he could say was, "That's great. What a fart." The apocalyptic war is such a mess. Especially because he missed the notification of the apocalyptic war due to this inexplicable kidnapping. The legends that every demon knows emerged from the depths of his heart. In the demon's account, the beginning of the Doomsday War will begin with the arrival of the Son of Chaos and end with the rule of eternal chaos over the 9 planes. No one can say exactly what the Son of Chaos looks like, what eternal chaos is, and when it will happen. But every demon eagerly anticipates the arrival of the Demon King, preparing for the day when the entire plane merges into the only chaotic hell for 9,000 years. Besides checking, he found it extremely boring. Think about it, merge all planes into one. Except for the power of disorder, other areas of power will disappear. What is the use of the interesting knowledge he knows? He knows 100 ways to crack dragon dreams and the mischievous tricks of fairies, is familiar with every mutation of the vine spirit and the soul, and is curious about the strange little things invented by humans. By the way, he just researched a few days ago and found a way to reconcile order and disorder, but it hasn't been published yet. Why are you here? Why didn't you go to the war preparation gathering? His soft voice interrupted his thoughts. Cha realized that he had just left the goddess aside. It's not important. He glanced at the runes stacked on the ground and realized that this isolated magic formation and the transformation curse on his body were working together, causing his connection with hell to be cut off, and he didn't hear this important notice. Please allow my request to take me out. He quickly prioritized things in his mind. The top priority is to quickly get out of it. Then we must restore our strength and reconnect with the headquarters to understand the situation. His disappearance at this node must seem suspicious. I allow it. Goddess Shir-Shiran walked over and spread out her beautiful hand, with an ugly scar in her palm. Apply your blood on it. Cha glanced at the strange scar and frowned. Those ravines formed complex shapes, depicting some primitive talisman used by First World plane fairies. The blood contract of compulsory enslavement. Fortunately, he knows. He glanced at the charming goddess with an excited smile on her face. I have gained a new understanding of the logic behind the actions of these guys on the human plane, and they are truly complex. Hurry up. I'll take you away, the goddess urged. After all, this is an opportunity. To check one's mind, bite through one's finger again, and paint blood marks on the other hand. Ignoring the scorching heat, he clenched the real silver chain behind his back with one hand to capture energy, and the bloody palm covered the hand spread out by the goddess. The piercing pain came from both palms, stimulating his nerves. Hold on tight, the goddess pulled him closer and instructed in his ear. He clenched the soft hand tightly. Gravity suddenly ceased to exist. The noisy wind shook the eardrums and made a buzzing sound. The scene in front of me was quickly drawn away. When the wind stopped, he stood firm and found that the night was thick and deep, and he was already in a sparse forest. Looking up, the cone-shaped spire of the castle emerged from the depths of the tree canopies, and the small window in the middle of a tower was still lit, emitting a dim candlelight. You were on the highest floor here just now, the goddess pointed out. What do I look like now? The goddess gave him a smirk and said, like a person. The malicious transformation curse has not been lifted yet. To check his physical activity, the good news is that he is no longer in pain all over, and the bad news is that he still cannot capture any chaotic breath and cannot establish connections with his peers. I need to go back and find the confiscated item before releasing the deformation. There is also the apocalyptic war. He missed the notice of the call, and the great demon Bexabu will definitely be furious. Thank you. Icha focused on thinking and walked towards the forest. Then he was pulled back by the goddess, and a pair of excited purple eyes stared at him. Where are you going? Ha ha ha. The goddess suddenly burst out laughing and tilted her head to check left and right. By the way, I seem to have forgotten to tell you that you just donated blood to me, and now you are my blood servant. You have to do whatever I ask you to do in the future. Wherever I ask you to go, you have to go. She approached Cha-Cha's face and nodded Cha-Cha's forehead. Now, you're not allowed to go anywhere. A demon blood servant. Oh my goodness, it's so rare. She smiled and bent over, wiping the corners of her eyes with no expression. How can I show off to others? What show should you perform for everyone at the party? By the way, tell me quickly, what do you know? Icha looked at her without any reaction. I can write books. A demon who can write books. Oh my goodness. Listen. The funniest joke in the world. I am skilled in power diversion and domain analysis, as well as some other races' mantras. In addition, I have a little knowledge of the history of the 9 planes. Then you must know some strange things. I've decided, you can tell me stories from now on. And record the joy that the playful Saint Shichi ribbon brings to the world. I glanced at her and said, I haven't heard of this name. This name will resound throughout the world. In the future, people will no longer just talk about Higasis as the daughter of the destructive hand, the goddess of destruction, the master of desire, and the goddess of spreading impulses. And you, my demon blood servant, will be my trusted assistant, said Higasis with a grim smile, half demon, half demon. No wonder there are ancient spells from fairies. I've already thought of your first story, Icha sighed leisurely, so fast. It seems you have a very clear understanding of your own situation. Okay. I like it. Zakisi loosened the tightly held hands between the two and turned to affectionate embrace to check her body. Sheila Saint Shichi Si. The demon replied with a polite smile, looking at the beautiful evil god nearby. Summoned to rescue the demon to Cha. He secretly set up a blood contract and planned to take her as a blood servant. But was cursed by Cha using the Manling counter curse, and the blood contract backfired on himself. Manling counter curse. What? Zakisi's face changed as she listened, and she took a step back, but was caught by Icha's wrist. The palm suddenly began to sting. Feeling uneasy, she lowered her head and twisted her expression. The scar spell pattern on the palm was covered by another rough blood pattern. The traces of blood that should have dried up are now shining with a metallic luster. Icha extended his hand in front of her, and his palm also had the same pattern, emitting a strange red light. Zakisi rubbed her hand in panic. But the spell pasted on Cha has already formed in her palm and cannot be lifted. The more she rubbed the talisman, the brighter it became, penetrating deep into her fair skin. The fear of being dominated made her scream. The story is over. Icha shook his head and gently closed his palm. The power of the demon is bound, and all he does is reflect back the power that Hicks himself injected into the blood curse. When zikishiding, she felt as if the talisman in her palm had been pierced by tens of millions of needles, and the pain went down her arm all the way to her chest, almost making it impossible to breathe. Her legs began to tremble and she leaned against a tree trunk to catch her breath. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Recovery. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Recovery. A warm breeze surged in. Zakisi still chose to attack to investigate. Icha thought about his own affairs and only lightly tapped his palm. A crack opened in the void, and Higasis, dressed in a purple dress, fell out with a disheveled face and planted herself in the muddy forest. She fell heavily, but curled up silently, her purple eyes filled with vigilance and anger. The blood contract you set yourself is a level for tracking souls. Cha looked at her with a worried intellectual gaze. Don't go against yourself anymore. Zikisi knelt on the ground, her luxurious purple dress covered in mud, her elbows and face dirty, and leaves stuck in the corners. She remained silent and her shoulders began to tremble. Cha raised his eyebrows and looked at her, thinking of a concept he had once read about human relationships. Cry. Zikisi cried. Cha observed her curiously, but in the blink of an eye, he remembered the matter and sighed, then turned around and walked towards the forest. The bright light at the top of the distant tower guided him. The closer you get, the more you can feel the scattered energy of laws permeating the air. To find out exactly where these energies come from. This is quite similar to the energy used in the magic arrays in the Jingjin prison and the plane traps in him. From the same person, the plane sorcerer who captured him. This guy cast a restriction spell and a transformation spell on him, and then touched all of his things. He needs to retrieve everything. The tower was right in front of him, and the light gauze like mist outside the wall blocked him. The alarm magic dome set by the plane sorcerer. Considering the cost of reckless actions. If he just passes through the mist like this, the plane sorcerer can immediately discover his existence. He estimated his current strength. The power of disorder cannot be invoked, human law spells and vine spirit spells require energy sources, and he currently does not have a stable one. As for the plane sorcerer, every human who can master profound plane spells is one of the best among all. His spells have a strong concealment ability, and he didn't even realize that he had fallen into a trap in the first place. Of course, the energy usage of this sorcerer is still flawed, but in his current state, a frontal confrontation is likely to fail. A familiar warm breeze surged around me. He turned his head and saw the expressionless playful Saint Hicks, her eyes slightly flushed. Still not leaving. In the moment of inquiry, it became clear that Shichi-C's blood contract should also include space limitations, and the blood servant cannot leave the blood master too far away. Zikisi remained expressionless and angry with Void. Okay. After thinking for a moment, cooperate with me to do something, and I can lift the blood contract. Although carrying Hicks may pose a risk, he now needs to rely on his strength. Zikisi's eyes lit up and her face became bright again. What? Icha pointed to the tower shrouded in mist. The goddess hesitated for a moment. In the end, she leaned over, grabbed the demon's arm, and descended into the castle with him. They lightly flashed past the walls, low stables, dormitories filled with sleeping apprentices, trial fields littered with puppets, and landed in a dark compartment deep inside. I found my personal belongings in the corner. Gold angle chain, iron curved blade, a bag of colorful energy pith stones, 5 crystal bottles containing quick runes, 3 booklets with brown covers, 2 feather pens, a roll of rune paper, portable ink bottle with silent ink inside. Is this your thing? Said Hicks in surprise. After checking and counting the items, there was still one missing. He finally found it on the other shelf, a black and red robe, which was his emblem. It's like a mage. A demon mage, commented Hicks with great interest, as she was no longer as uncomfortable as before. As Cha shook his robe, the next second his robe with crimson stripes and black cloud patterns neatly fitted his slender figure. How much do you know about that plain sorcerer here? My name is Nice. I am an orphan, self-taught and talented among humans. I have not submitted to any deity. Humph. It's boring. Anyone who is not my follower is boring. A faint pride appeared on the goddess's face. Let's go. Go see him. Icha extended his arm. This time they teleported directly to the room where the plain sorcerer Ness resided. The fire flickered, and there was a figure wearing a hood by the desk. The gilded thorns on his chest indicated that he was a high-ranking member of the Sorcerers Association. The gaze under the hood was not flustered, but focused on the sudden appearance as if prepared. Devil. You also brought a helper. When Hickeys arrived, she concealed her form, and although Nice could not see it, she could feel another indistinguishable existence besides the devil, without making any rash moves. I think we can just put it bluntly. Cha Dafang found a comfortable seat for himself and casually leaned back in the chair. If you are a kind and disciplined caster, please lift the curse of the law on me now. Don't worry, I have no interest in retaliating against you. A demon doesn't mind this offense. Especially the apocalyptic war is waiting for him. With Cha's attitude too calm, Nice frowned and a silver coin appeared in his hand. He glanced at the silver coins shining brightly. The real silver coins have not turned black. This demon is not lying upon reflection. Nazario saw the silver coin disappear into his fingers. I believe in you. You believe in yourself. Cha smiled slightly as he saw the sorcerer's small movements. The door behind me slammed open. A strong sense of order rushed into the room, and 4 young faces in white robes, holding real silver chains, surrounded him. 4 pastors. Their clothes were consecrated. To look around, their gaze fell on Nice. The face of the plain sorcerer was hidden behind his hood, and he stood up from behind his desk, pressing his hands on the table to confront the demon. I believe you, but I'm sorry, this is not aimed at you. Ness's voice clearly did not contain any apologies. He raised one hand to signal, and the priests began reciting the lower order decree, gripping the chains in their hands and cautiously approaching Ika. The devil began to feel tired of this method of increasing trouble. Hicks, come out and play. He didn't make any extra moves, just sighed and touched the palm talisman. A soft, long, teasing sigh filled the room. The divine light suddenly appeared, and the intoxicating warm breeze instantly swept through everyone present. The pale purple outline condensed from mid-air, emitting a maddening fragrance, and the figure of the playful saint shrouded in magnificent light appeared beside Icha. Sheila Saint Shichi Si, she is even more captivating than this fragrance, and even more makes people want to be naked than this warm breeze. Icha summarized it from the behavior of 4 white-robed pastors and found it a bit foolish. The divine power of humans and gods comes from the collective will of believers, and different collective wills transform different forces. The goddess of joy can clearly approach the realm of disorder, in order to find that nature is completely immune to all of this. The pastors were stuttering and giggling as they squeezed together, and the real silver chains were thrown aside. As their hands were busy taking off their tops. This is divine power. Ness's voice trembled, and it was rare that he could withstand the impact. You are a god. I am his servant, said Hicks, placing her arm around Icha's shoulder. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Double Destruction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Double Destruction. As a human god, devote oneself to a demon as a servant. Nice couldn't conceal his emotions. This revealed a loophole, as Cha realized that the powerful plain sorcerer sounded just a young man in his 20s. No wonder. I can feel that although he can apply many difficult spells, there are still many flaws in his understanding of power diversion. Those chains full of energy are an absolute mistake. To watch as Hickeys kicked the priests who were groaning and collapsing outside the door in a row. As they were eager to stroke the goddess's calves. Can we talk now? Ness remained silent, and for a moment, he tightened his shoulders and back as if about to launch an attack. Sensing the fluctuation of the law energy, Cha shook his finger and said, "Don't do anything useless. Your energy conversion rate is still too poor now." He thought of something and smiled. Do you want to improve? I can teach you. Eyes flickered under the hood. Is this a transaction? The transaction of demons. That's all for human understanding of demons. Cha is just a bit regretful. This sorcerer seems to be only one step away from the crux of the matter. Just take a look at my own article, me and my 18 times energy conversion rate. Nice sat down because Hicks had already flashed to his side, her pointed nails resting on his carotid artery. Forget it. I remember you said, I'm going to offer this demon sacrifice to an angel. Who told you? This is also a question that Cha needs to clarify. Sooner or later, one day one can ask Courtyard, but he wants to know the human version of the answer. The demon is about to launch the apocalyptic war, and the angels making such strange provocations on the eve of this war is truly suspicious. Nice remained silent for a moment and threw out a roll of parchment. The joint dream prophecy made by the 5 greatest prophets last month. Purple breath leaf ink outlines a detailed image. The dark clouds rolled over, led by an angel resembling a child. More than a dozen angels descended into a white storm in the sky, and the continent below was shattered into several pieces, falling apart. There are many people on the ground. But not a single one is standing, they are either nowhere to be found or burnt black. There is also a corpse of a demon cut into pieces in the corner. So, this prophecy makes you feel like an angel needs a demon to sacrifice to destroy humanity, said Cha, rolling up parchment with no expression on his face. Isn't that so? This is the interpretation of the prophet. Why did you choose me? Selected. No. Nisa's voice lost its confidence. Your position is closest to the plain spell trap we have set. Icha felt that it was extremely outrageous, their interpretation was completely wrong, and their methods were so hasty. Why are humans so cunning on one hand and so blind on the other? Subsequently, it was easily concluded that they needed better education. He walked up and suddenly pulled off the face sorcerer's hood, examining him. A head of golden curly hair was exposed, and Ness had an unexpected childish expression, even younger than he had imagined. Of course, all humans are as young as a caterpillar in front of him. Ness's eyes showed a panic that he tried to conceal, and it must be said that he was also a relatively young one among the caterpillars. A caterpillar in need of education. Icha sat down again and patiently said, Do you know about the Battle of Doom? Nish shook his head in confusion. Okay. The Battle of Doom is our saying, and the angels also have a similar legend called the Battle of Dawn. Icha shook the parchment scroll in his hand and said, In short, one day, these kind-hearted angels will launch a full-scale war under the leadership of the Order Child, unifying all 9 planes and making the world the only heaven. He nodded at the angel in front of the child and said, This is the Order Child. This is the symbol of the Dawn War. He's not joking, that's what Courtyard told him. This thing sounds very similar to the Doomsday War, which makes Icha wonder if all 9 planes have legends of a unified universe led by the sons of their respective planes. This also accelerates the rapid loss of interest in things like the battle against someone like a free fall. Ni stared in surprise at the scroll in his hand, indicating a different interpretation of the prophet's prophecy. That is to say. That's right. Icha spread out the painting and pointed to the tattered demon corpse in the corner. This is not a sacrifice. It just shows that we are also one of the targets of angels in the Dawn War. So there's no need to make any sacrifices at all. It's no use doing it, he thought. The legendary battles of Doomsday and Dawn seem to have inevitably occurred simultaneously. Perhaps this is the same thing. Regardless, the pitiful human plane will face a terrible double baptism. After the war, the world will only be left with either the only hell or the only heaven. He rejected this outcome from the bottom of his heart. His new research has not been published yet. This is quite a coincidence. Sakisi raised her eyebrows and looked at the painting, knowing that the apocalyptic war had also begun in the past few days. Perhaps the Order Saint and the Son of Chaos have agreed to be born together, Icha joked. This point is indeed suspicious, but at the moment, things can only be done step by step. Nice wanted to doubt, but the devil's words were very convincing. Real silver coins once again provide an honest answer. The sorcerer leaned back on the chair like an old man. The interpretation of the prophecy made by the great prophet was actually wrong, and the demon in front of him pointed it out directly. At the same time, it brought millions of times more bad news. The main material plane where humans are located is about to be destroyed twice. What should we do? Alright. Thank you for pointing out your mistake. Now please remove these extra spells from me, said Nis, who was immersed in shock. Why did you tell me all this? Nis stared at him and said after a while. Because you are a caterpillar in need of education. Icha looked at him kindly. The young plain sorcerer remained silent for a moment, as if mourning. He took out a gemstone dagger and cut through the 3 fingers of his left hand. Spells flow. The black wind without any gaps began to surround itself. The books, daggers, Hick's long hair, and other small pieces on the table began to shake. When the black wind was swept away in the air, the thin man on the armchair had transformed into a well-proportioned demon. The 2-colored patterned robe of Qi Yen and Wuyun perfectly complements his body and echoes his bright red horns. His tail was graceful and powerful, with dazzling blue flames burning in his eyes. Ah! It's much better now. Icha sighed with joy. This sentence was spoken in demonic language, full of the power of chaos. Immediately after, he saw Ness coughing and covering her ears to resist, while Hick stared at him blankly, her face flushed. Sorry, Yi Jian smiled and changed back to human form. This may be more convenient. Zakisi shook her head vigorously and then grabbed Nisa's neck. The next anomaly is sudden. I only had time to lift my finger. Ah! Click. Pop. The sound of Ness suffocating, the sound of bones breaking, and the sound of Hicks being hit were almost simultaneous. The playful saint threw down the unconscious plain sorcerer and jumped aside, rubbing the wrist that had been hit by the demon, looking at him with a puzzled expression. Don't you want to kill him? He's no longer useful. Hick's voice decreased and she lowered her head. And he knew you were innocent and even wanted to hurt you a few times. If that's the case, you've already gone crazy. Icha leaned forward and glanced at the plain sorcerer. The caterpillar's neck was broken, convulsing, and blood gushed from its mouth. The disordered energy is not beneficial for this situation. He took out a crystal bottle from his pocket, took out a quick rune from the manling spell, and bounced it towards Nisa's body. The healing green light enveloped the young man with blonde hair. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. First disciple, first servant, first friend. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. First disciple, first servant, first friend. I once again feel that I know very little about humans. The speed at which they changed their attitude made him feel extremely strange. For example, when Ness was rescued by him, it was like a different person, determined to be his student, and still saying long phrases about forgiveness, loyalty, and wisdom. Student. Although he has had similar experiences, Cha never thought about accepting any formal students. It's just that when he mentioned it, he suddenly felt that he might be a really good teacher. For example, when Icha planned to fulfill her promise and terminate Shichi's blood contract as agreed, she surprisingly refused. She said, "There's no other meaning, I think being with you might be more interesting." Okay, he really didn't figure out what else meant. He should go and contact other demons now. The pre-war mobilization meeting for the Doomsday War may have been completed, and the demon king Bessie may have noticed his absence. No demon would want to oppose Bessie, and no demon would refuse the call of the Doomsday War. He really doesn't want to go. There is one more thing to procrastinate on. Setting up the scene for the subdued spirit. Shichi clearly didn't understand the meaning of the investigation. The meaning is that if others find out that the prisoner under my supervision has gone missing with me, I will be on the wanted list of the entire Warlock Association, Ness immediately explained. But if you can leave a miracle in prison, everyone will only feel that other forces have taken me and the teacher away. This is the teacher's way of thinking for me. Zakisi nodded coldly, pretending to understand. Thank you again, teacher. The plain sorcerer bowed to the demon. Icha suppressed his laughter and raised her arm slightly. The joyful saint slid over like a purple spiritual snake, holding onto his arm. Let's go. Warm air. 3 figures disappeared from the study. Zikishi used some means and made the cell of Icha look like it had been cleaned by an alchemy bomb, with a large hole added to the wall. From the traces she left, it seemed like she had been flattened by a giant dragon with a lot of saliva, then dug out from the ground, pierced through the wall, and thrown out. Ness shook his head as he looked at the vomit-like miracle on the ground, and his respect for the goddess Hicks quickly diminished in his brief interaction. Saint. She's almost like a witch. Why do gods like you still have believers? Murmured the plain sorcerer in a low voice. Human nature is complex. There are various prayers. All humans and gods come from the power of a certain set of human wills, answered Izao. These are all written in books, even in my own genre. However, Nis and Hikis nodded repeatedly, as if he was talking about some kind of self-invented holy scripture. The feeling of teaching and dispelling doubts this time is indeed good. He reached into his arms and felt that among the 3 books he carried with him, the 9 Faces 1 book should be suitable for Nis to read. The sound of wings waving caught his attention. He immediately turned his head to look at the huge opening on the wall. White light spread before my eyes. The white light of order. It was almost late at night, but the sky was suddenly illuminated as bright as day. Strangely, the entire city remained silent without any response. Shichi-si flashed to the edge of the cave, and Nis ran up. They once again saw the original form of the demon. Chick. Only the sound of magic sounded, and a thick black mist surged out of nowhere, rolling towards the pale sky. In the black mist, Icha reappeared in demonic form. He spread out his huge pitch-black wings, and the flame-red stripes on his robe marked the remnants, charging straight out. Bang, with a dull loud bang. The white light was divided, weakened, and obscured by black mist, and the sky darkened. Only a white figure remained bright, with a perfect figure and a pair of uncontrollable white wings scattered behind him. The black and red demons were hovering in front of him. The chaotic airflow swirled gray clouds. An angel. Nis was pushed to the ground by the wind pressure. Zikishi has rushed to Icha's side and is ready to provide support at any time. I saw Icha and the angel staring at each other. I said, "Do you have to appear like this?" The demon broke his silence. "That's so cool," the angel said innocently. "When will you be able to reconcile the power of order?" Hicks and Nis couldn't believe their ears. "No, why do you look so familiar?" The playful saint widened her eyes. "Where is the eternal opposition between angels and demons, order and chaos?" Nis got up from the ground and became suspicious of his 19 years of life. "Let me introduce you. Kikir. My loyal reader and academic rival. Friend." The demon flew back into the cell and transformed back into a human form. An angel friend. Shichi-si and Nis were stunned by the sound. The angel nodded elegantly and landed next to the demon. Stepping on something vomit-like. Damn it. Before he could finish speaking, he turned into a chubby rabbit and his divine light disappeared. Still can't use foul language. Damn it, 35,000 unholy words, there's so much nonsense. The profanity of this sentence directly turned the angel into a winged pig. I understand very well that this is a behavioral norm built into each angel's body. He used newly discovered theories to neutralize and guide, and Angel Pig bounced back to its human form. Shichi-si and Nisa's eyeballs are about to fall to the ground. Looking at Courtyard, who had patted off the smoke and dust from his robe, he had many questions to ask, but they all needed to be considered. What are you doing here? In the end, he decided to take the simplest approach. Of course I heard you're in trouble. Courtyard looked around, searching for the culprit. His gaze swept over Ness and he blinked his sparkling golden eyes. Ness trembled slightly, but did not move a step. There's no trouble. It's all misunderstandings. What else? Cha said coldly, gaining the gratitude of the plain sorcerer. It's gone. What else can there be? The angel withdrew his gaze and said playfully. Cha smiled without a smile, took out the parchment from his pocket that prophesied the battle of dawn, and threw it at Courtyard. Courtyard glanced at the picture of purple breath leaf ink and his smile became awkward. You already know. But it has nothing to do with me, he said. It's okay. The degree of this error is so obvious that Cha is too lazy to point it out. Have you received the notification? The Dawn War is similar to the Doomsday War in all aspects. For example, it must also mobilize all its members. The Dawn War naturally has summoning orders for all angels. Courtyard should not appear here. I. The angel rubbed her hands nervously. I ran away. Fighting, killing, or something. I'm not suitable. So I came to find you right away. Did you run away? Come find me. Does it mean that behind your buttocks, there are likely to be a bunch of other angels ready to punish deserters at any time? And then you come find a demon. I feel a headache for checking the authenticity of the goods. Angels have the same simple thinking in this regard as in the past 600 years. Time has never left a mark on this person or in their mind. By the way, where are you going now? I'm planning to follow you and hide. Courtyard looked at him holily and confidently. Please let me follow you to learn more. The plain sorcerer Ness immediately realized something and quickly took a step forward, pleading. I don't mind playing for a while longer, said Hicks, teasing her soft long hair and glancing at him. She looked exceptionally beautiful. Thinking about it. He stood at the entrance of the cave and looked out. The night is coming to an end, and a touch of peach blossom appears on the horizon. Looking down, the other buildings of the castle densely and haphazardly surround this tower. He can walk through the training ground and see the forest, and there is another city at the foot of the mountain in the distance. Dogs bark, someone is propping up the window, and someone is reciting the 21 ritual precautions loudly to check that their enhanced hearing can capture the gradually rising sound of noise. Although not entirely beautiful, everything has its own consistent pattern in his eyes. They definitely have value that won't be destroyed. Right. And there are also people who need his guidance. A new plan rises in his chest. To reveal the smile that only demons have. Angels, sorcerers, and gods are waiting for him. So he said to them. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to hell together. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Caterpillar. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Caterpillar. No one answered at the moment. Courtyard stared to investigate, as if he had discovered on the first day that he was a demon. The angel's eyebrows and eyes formed an exaggerated angle, and his flawless fingers tightly twisted the roll of parchment back and forth, as if holding on to his own brain, while he tried to manually activate it to understand the current situation. Going to hell. Like most angels born during this 700-year peace period, also known as the Age of the Lonely Islands, Courtyard has never been to Chaos Hell. He never even thought about this matter. This is the benefit of order, which prevents people from thinking about things outside of order. He and Cha met during a lecture tour of the Manling clan's great life worshipper, Talaliki. It's hard not to know each other. Among the smooth and greasy Manling clan people, they stood out like two glass marbles in a pile of mung beans. Afterwards, he and Cha maintained good long-distance communication. Even if they had to discuss important topics, they would choose to meet in the most secretive, balanced, and pure energy of the 9 planes. The Garden of the Balancer. To ensure that they discussed issues in a completely fair and just environment. To be honest, after discovering that Cha had broken his promise, he was startled by just trying to reflect and replay the situation from the pool in the center of the Yuhang's garden. The rough scenes of chaotic hell burned his pure eyes like thick smoke. Now this guy wants me to go to hell. He just wanted me to go to hell, right? Will I choke to death? Will it melt? Will it be discovered by 72 demon gods and then torn apart? Once you start to think carefully, the angel realizes that this matter must never be thought about. Damn it, oh no, I definitely didn't use any foul language this time. Damn it. Nisa's situation is slightly better, but it hasn't improved much either. The sorcerer was stiff all over, standing even straighter than the sculpture of the knights, and his gaze glued intently to the distant floor. Just like the portrait of Medusa painted there. He put on and put down his hood, repeating it 3 times. Nis knew that he could use the holy circle, precise instruments, pure spiritual sources, sufficient concentration, and control over time, space, and stars to capture the moment of plane collision, guiding or projecting the alien energy from other planes. This is what a professional plane sorcerer should do, using an accurate set of rituals, materials, and will structures to guide energy, just like using burning iron tongs to stir a fire, occasionally fanning the wind to make the flames burn bigger or even extinguish them. Even if the human world is to be destroyed twice in flames, he should follow the correct operating sequence and save it twice reasonably. Instead of directly diving into the raging fire. Absolutely not. The only reason to do so is for the demon sitting on the edge of the wall hole, with his legs hanging down leisurely, to investigate and make him do so. The gentle breeze gently caressed the demon's black and red robe, making him look particularly respected and correct. Especially unable to refuse. Nis has realized that Cha is not invincible to humans, and he is likely the only demon who holds this attitude. Now it seems that only by following him can we come into contact with the key to solving the end of the main material plane. This knowledgeable and compassionate demon, among so many humans, happened to have had the opportunity to interact with him himself, the opportunity to touch the truth. Perhaps there is also a chance to save the world. The feeling of glory rose from the sorcerer's heart. Even his magical talent, which had been praised by countless people, had never made him feel so honored. As mentioned before, he should follow this gifted mentor wherever he goes. However, the images depicting the terrifying scenes of hell that have been ingrained in my mind since childhood have resurfaced. Nis shook his head to shake off those scenes. Perhaps the knowledgeable demon mentor has his own way. Just like how he miraculously rescued himself from the clutches of death. But anyway, it's a chaotic hell that scares every human being. Silence. Silent. All kinds of heavy-hearted silence. After a complex silence mixed with holiness, evil, ordinariness, joy, and boredom. Pop. I only heard Hicks give a crisp clap of her hand. All right. Her violet eyes flickered with interest, and her seductive voice echoed through the leaking cell, asking the question hovering in everyone's heart. How do we get there? Icha slowly turned around, and the green flame burned in his eyes. So, have you decided on it? He is giving us time to make choices. He respects our free will so much. Nis immediately realized this. He looked at Kikir. The angel remained silent, and his golden eyes still gleamed with confusion. Nis understands this very well, and the basic characteristic of living organisms is slow response, which is fully reflected in this guy. Of course, I am on the path that the teacher is moving forward. So Nis immediately bowed and said. Zakisi glanced at him with some surprise. I didn't expect the little human sorcerer to not back down. I hope I can accompany you around, Ness said again. Icha stood up and walked up to the sorcerer. He stirred the disorderly energy and transformed into a demon, with a golden horn chain wrapped around his bright red long horns. Very good. A brave caterpillar, he didn't misread. Of course, it's okay if you're wrong. He gently lifted one hand and pressed it on Ness's head, but Ness did not move. Courtyard looked at them with concern. You will die. Icha spoke slowly, feeling the young sorcerer under his hands start to tremble. Zakisi's eyes lit up with excitement. Follow your instructions, Ness said in a suppressed hiss. Icha smiled and said, okay. He gripped the sorcerer's head tightly. Blue flames surged in his eyes, and a chaotic black mist began to dissipate from his entire body. The sorcerer's head seemed to be sucked up by something, and his head was tightly pressed against Icha's palm, with all his facial features flying upwards. Hiss in just an instant, Ness couldn't make a sound. He trembled like a convulsion all over, and a terrifying, sucking gurgling noise echoed from the junction between his head and the demon's hand. The sorcerer opened his eyes and mouth wide open, but there were only pitch-black holes and blood dripping down. With a bang, his tongue, along with his eyeballs and brain, was sucked clean in the direction of the heavenly cover. The sorcerer's body quickly shrunk, and his skin first turned pale. Because the blood in it had disappeared and then turned dry gray. Shio. Gulu blood and flesh were pumped away from his interior. In the blink of an eye, the sorcerer turned into an empty leather pocket. Nausea ha 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 ha. Courtyard vomited. Zikishi applauded and laughed heartily. With a gentle flick of his finger, even the wrinkled face pocket shrank upwards, and the elasticity disappeared between his fingers. Nisa's cloak lost its physical support and fell to the ground. The sorcerer disappeared from his palm. A caterpillar. To investigate. The black mist became denser. Still, waiting for his command. The demon did not stop, concentrating on implementing the rules he had invented himself. The energy of the sorcerer's flesh and blood material ascended, was broken down by the horn chain, and returned to his palm once again. The palm was filled with the energy of this pitiful human, heavy and iron-like. Lift the palm and throw it upwards. A mass of gel-like air was thrown away by him. The sound of vomiting and laughter fell into the air. Fantasy is average. The young man with blonde hair appeared from mid-air and landed in front of them. Nis curled up on the ground, looking up at the demon in confusion. His appearance is no different from before, it seems that he still doesn't understand what happened. I rubbed my wrist. After a while, Hikis and Courtyard quietly gathered around, and the angel casually draped Nisa's clothes. This was his nature. Teacher. Ness's voice sounded very faint. Only energetic creatures can pass through the plane. This is. The plane sorcerer showed a bewildered expression. His body was light and floating, and the magical ending of the demon's words still echoed low, but his brain no longer reacted excessively to it. Young caterpillars. To look at him with encouragement. You are now a butterfly. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Energy Creatures, Hell Broadcast. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Energy Creatures, Hell Broadcast. As is well known, almost all living organisms can be classified into three types. Material organisms, energy organisms, and law organisms. The main material plane concentrates almost 80% of the material organisms in the 9 major planes of the universe, such as bitter root grass, snails, humans, and so on. The other 20% of material organisms are mostly distributed in the dream cradle plane where dragons and spirits are located. It is worth noting that some pioneers have indicated that traces of material organisms have also been found in the Vientiane forest and the Killing domain. Material organisms are very bulky and unable to leave their taxonomic plane, which narrows their horizons. And energy organisms and law organisms are not limited to this. Introduction to biological classification. Not everything can be eaten by turning around. I understand the truth. How did you do it? Courtyard asked Icha while rubbing Nisa's golden head back and forth, as if checking his quality. I haven't published it yet. The so-called publication naturally refers to the public announcement in the academic paradise. The Garden of the Hung. Then he planned to discuss with Courtyard, which was exactly what they had originally agreed on a few days ago. Okay. Courtyard threw down the plain sorcerer whose hair had already exploded, looking dejected. In short, your current state allows you to travel with us, Icha casually said to Nis, while sorting out the energy in the air. Good, no omissions, all of it has been imported into the new form of the sorcerer. We. What about me, said the angel, and then he remembered something. With a sense of teamwork, he pointed to Hicks. Where is she? Taking a glance at Hicks, she hugged her arms and seemed to be pondering something, which was a very rare phenomenon. He decided not to disturb this precious moment, turned around and took off the golden horn chain from the bright red long horn, throwing it to Courtyard. Wearing this, you can hide that wooden and obscene aura. If other demons are not too close to you, they should not be able to detect you. What? Laozi has an extraordinary divine aura. Courtyard angrily turned into a white bear out of foul language, but this did not stop him from lifting the beautiful gold chain and carefully examining it. Why? What is the principle? What is the principle? The principle that has not been published yet, said Cha. He felt a great sense of achievement at this moment, with sparks of inspiration surging like wildfire. In an instant, he thought of 2 words that could make the angel furious. Ness carefully interrupted him, teacher. His hair still looked like cauliflower. Cha raised his eyebrows and stared at him with burning blue eyes. What am I now? The sorcerer asked word for word, his voice filled with worry. Strange question. Do humans always ask such strange questions? It's as if the situation will be different after knowing, but they are too fragile and easily affected. It's better for him to answer this guy well. You are now an energy creature. To show a perfect attitude, I thought about the words and phrases in my heart. How can I say that? I decomposed your physical body through a process of disorder, used the condensation power of the manling spirit to preserve your spiritual energy, and then extracted it through legal means. Aha! You told me the process. I know. Courtyard clapped and laughed. Great, I almost got to the point. Taking a glance at Courtyard, the angel placed a golden chain on his head, which hung down on one of his furry white ears. He was patting his majestic chest with his bare paw, immersed in the ecstasy of finally winning. He's not stupid, he's just a bit silly. Ness lowered his head and pondered, his face still carrying the bewildered expression of a newborn, more like a youthful youth. I know, he said, you'll have to adapt for a while. Cha thought for a moment, touched it in his arms, and handed over the book, 9 Faces 1 Book. Let's take a look at this recently. The clear gratitude in the eyes of the young sorcerer can almost move any heartless person, but the demon just grinned at him and walked around the playful saint beside him. The joyful saint only gave him a slender purple silhouette. It's just you. To check what was originally intended to say. Then suddenly realized that she was not inferior at all. Sheila Saint Shichi, the joyful messenger of all beings, the goddess of half-demons and half-demons, the master of desire, and the goddess of spreading impulses. She is Ivern, the daughter of a wandering demon 450 years ago, the hand of destruction. She knew about the apocalyptic war and knew that Yvonne was recalled as a result. It is even possible that she witnessed Iverman responding to the call and returning to Chaos Hell with her own eyes. Will she not know how to get to Chaos Hell? It's possible. Is it highly likely? Zakisi turned around and said to him, he saw that the Holy Spirit of Joy had made a, I have something to say to you, gesture to him, but he didn't hear anything. Because his mind was suddenly filled with that damn, buzzing, hellish broadcast. Hell's broadcasting. If there's anything wrong with being a demon, this ubiquitous and pervasive hellish broadcast is definitely one of them. As long as you are still using the energy of disorder, it can find you at any time, when you are flirting with the half-sheep beauty, when you are sitting in the theater of the Lost Souls concert with a moved expression, and when you are seriously discussing the ultimate theorem about the universe in the Garden of the Guardians. Just like the punishment embedded in 35,000 unholy words by angels, every demon can be exposed by hell's broadcasting at any time, sometimes appearing in a very annoying form, such as leaving a protruding and twisted demon text on your arm. For example, now. I lowered my head to see the vomit-like red, green stains on the ground, and dirty words like fly wings began to emerge. It seems like he's working together to explain the continuous noise in his mind. Why are you absent from our great meeting? the demon of inquiry, Chateau Sincardius. The formation of hell is about to depart. Don't disobey, don't hesitate. Otherwise, you will be branded with the imprint of evil and wrongdoing, the imprint of evil traitors, the imprint of tragic prey. Seeking knowledge of the devil, Chateau Sincardius. Return to your fellow countrymen. I feel like a fly has entered my heart. Thank you. Thank you, Bexy-boo. Thank you for always mentioning my title that no one remembers. Thank you, as the king of demons, for condescending to inform me alone. Thank you for explaining the consequences so clearly. You look a bit unhappy. What's wrong with you? Zakisi's gentle voice appeared in his ear, only then did he realize that the hell broadcast had ended. The dirty beach under my feet has regained its muddy and disorderly appearance. A fresh ray of sunlight shone in from outside the broken hole in the wall. Can you do it? He said concisely to Hicks. Zakisi nodded, her expression looking a bit complicated, but Cha is currently not in the mood to pay attention. Let's go, he said. What are we going to do? Asked Hicks. Is she a trustworthy existence? To investigate. Stop the apocalypse, he said in the end. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Bad Landing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Bad Landing. Icha doesn't dislike chaos hell. In fact, after spending the past few days in prison on the main material plane, the backflow sulfur waterfall emitting pitch-black smoke, the bare weathered skull on the ground, and the occasional crimson skite scraping through the swarms of giant insects, all became increasingly adorable in his memory. There are many things that he likes. For example, convenient materials. The thick top-level fibrous bone dust at the foot of Kishino's 3-layer sword mountain is an excellent stabilizer, and the remains of the remains in the burning valley can often be rummaged for primitive pith stones. By the way, he usually carries a bag of refined ones with him. The appearance of this thing is a porous and irregular small ball, which contains a lot of disorderly power. It also retains corresponding spiritual energy according to the mood of the corpse owner before marrow transformation. After extraction, it is very suitable as an additional source of energy. And those activities. The most popular and difficult to secure a good seat is undoubtedly the branding trial. The trial is held every 150 years on the 3-tiered mountain of Kishino, where all new members exchange a portion of their souls for the real name bestowed upon them by the Demon King, and then burn the name written in demonic language as an anchor on Kishino's fiery cliffs. Many names are destined to be forgotten from the moment they are taken. After all, many demons are not very literate. This later led to a period of chaos that was not long or short. Since Bezeb was promoted to the King of Demons, the efficiency of Hell's broadcasting had been severely affected. No one could tell from the buzzing of 10,000 flies whether she was broadcasting today's weather or a decree to purify traitors. So Bishibu's solution was to simply describe the main content in text, just like what he could see. This made the situation worse, and the drawback of illiteracy immediately emerged. A large number of demons turned a blind eye to her carefully crafted irregular evening programs. By the way, many demons also have no mouths, and they cannot even ask others. Of course, this matter was eventually resolved. In a very painful way. As the most knowledgeable demon, Bexabu had him tutor the entire chaotic hell with demon texts for 1,600 years. This is really an unforgettable experience. When the last demon fluently recited the 13-line poems of the violent dead, and walked out of Icha's house, he watched as the figure who came with an empty mind and went with a refined demeanor immediately collapsed on his back, sleeping for 150 years. This incident brought both a positive outcome and a negative impact. The negative impact naturally left a strong impression on Bexy-boo. The bad thing about this impact is that no one wants to leave any impression on Bexy-boo. Even a few demon gods who share the same philosophy as Bezabut keep a respectful distance from her. Because she forget it, let's talk about it when we see her. However, this good result is still quite good. barely able to make up for the spiritual trauma he suffered from the foolish demons for 1,600 years. That is, he is allowed to name himself. He was able to erase his demon's real name on the cliff and give himself a new name. Naturally, his anchor point also disappeared from there. He doesn't need an anchor, he should go wherever there is truth. He had already come up with a long, two-part name that distinguished him from other demons. Yikain Sinkadestu. Meaning. Shepherd in the 10-headed snake cave. It's really great that I didn't collide with Bezier the first time I returned to Chaos Hell. If it weren't for the angel constantly spitting out a silver glowing liquid like a fountain next to him, Icha's plan would have been implemented and his mood would have been quite good. Unfortunately, all of this did not happen. The golden horn chain he gave Kikir can break up and reassemble the order energy on the angel's body, so that he is not recognized by other demons. After all, the appearance can change, and the hiding of energy in breath is the key. The angle chain is working normally, and Kozier's order energy breath is masked even better than he imagined. Even if he passes by the demons, he may not be able to be smelled. The problem was that he didn't expect the angel himself to be unable to tolerate the chaotic environment of hell. As soon as he landed, he started coughing, and soon he started vomiting with tears in his eyes, successfully dragging everyone down. To investigate is to gently dissolve the power of harmony and order, but what Kozier's situation requires is the opposite. The silver liquid spewed out, and Kikir opened his mouth. Pure white light began to float out of his mouth like bubbles. Cha frowned as he watched the angel constantly creating divine pollution. Fortunately, they arrived at the edge of the chaotic hell, silent and secretive, in the center of the eternal night of the sharp-toothed desert, otherwise there would be no way to hide their tracks. Nis was also disturbed. He clumsily tried to hold on to Kikir with one arm, splashing a lot of silver liquid on his body. Although it turned out that the angels of the source of order were not fuel-efficient lamps, Kikir still left a pretty good impression on him. Without a single pull, Kikir lay face down on the ground. Dragging Nis down, he was not yet familiar with his new body. Zakisi screamed mockery while holding hands and walking on the side. It should be due to leaving the position of the followers that the divine light on her body became quite dim. At this point, the characteristics of her bloodline became prominent. Her hands were now curved like bird claws, the demon horns on top of her head were bent backwards, her skin had turned pale pink, and her eyes had become narrow and long. Her white eyes were completely gone, and there was no trace of light in her pitch-black eyes. "Help!" the helpless Ness called out to Hicks. Zakisi waved her arm. The indigo-purple feathers suddenly spread from her shoulder to her wrist, forming a narrow wing. She flapped her wings and fanned Ness out. Her half of mixed race is the hobbit demon. With a frown and a snap of her finger, she appeared below the floating sorcerer, held him up, and then picked up Kokir from afar. "Don't do this kind of behavior again in the future," he flashed up to Hicks and stared at her. The last thing needed in the current situation is an angel spreading divine gastric juice everywhere, and a half-demon who is doing evil. Oh! Zakisi turned her head in frustration. She impatiently jumped onto a steep rock wall and crouched there, her pitch-black eyes staring into the distance. "It's been half a day, what are we going to do? I remember you had something to say to me. There's no more now. I don't have much curiosity about this. After thinking about it, I decided to solve two problems at once. Let's act separately first." He pushed Kikir, and the angel weakly and obediently fell under the rock wall where Zakisi was squatting. "Take him home." "Going home? The source of order." The playful saint tilted her head like a purple eagle. "I touched a red pith stone and threw it to her. Go back to my house." About less than a quarter of demons have the habit of settling down, and Chak coincidentally is one of them. His books, laboratory, specimen room, and various rule fields require storage space. He couldn't drive away Kikir, this guy could be arrested at any time outside. Although chaotic hell makes angels uncomfortable all over, it is also a natural barrier to prevent other angels from coming. The red medullary stone emits familiar energy, which is no different from what is seen on the body. There is enough disorderly energy and my own spirit above, and there is also a drop of my blood inside. It will guide you to where you should go without triggering a blood contract backlash. It will also give you the qualification to enter my courtyard. After a brief explanation, Cha moved his finger and said, "All right, go ahead. There's a protective dome over there. He'll be better there." He was completely not worried about the evil taste of the playful saint this time. Even if the angel fainted, Hicks couldn't do anything to him. The courtyard of Blood Lord Demon Zakisi stared at the bright red pith stone, full of beautiful feelings. She couldn't help but be interested in this matter. She rolled her eyes like a bird and said, "Okay. See you later." The playful saint bit the pith stone in her mouth and jumped off the rock wall, carrying the angel who was busy hiccuping, her arms trembling. The dense indigo feathers woven into 4 slender wings. She tossed her body upwards, hovered for half a second, and went lightning far away. At the beginning of this chapter, some scattered threads will be laid out. The threads will all be twisted together. Chapter 17. Open Twist. Some of the demon names and spell-casting patterns in the volume of Chaos Hell are based on 2 famous mystical books, the Solomon Key and the Small Key. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. 6 Plans. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 6 Plans. The burning sulfur flowed back into the purplish-blue night sky where the dying person's face was as pale as before, and the pale desert was filled with sharp teeth, ready to bite off the flesh below the ankles of passing creatures at any time. Yikane. Where are you? Don't forget, I can punish you at any time. Come on now. I will make you our strategist. As he looked at the dozens of yellowed and withered long teeth in front of him, they began to move on their own, displaying the symbols of devil's language. Another round of private broadcasts by Bisib had arrived. This time her tone appeared very friendly. This means it is very dangerous. She seemed to be starting to get anxious. This is a bad signal. Anxiety will make Bexabu, the king of demons, restless, and her restlessness will melt flesh and blood, turn bones and muscles into fly ash, and evaporate soul. Nis stood quietly to check his side. Before coming to Chaos Hell, he was mentally prepared to see any terrifying sight, but now he felt less afraid than he had imagined. The scorching and sticky pungent air of Chaos Hell flowed into his lungs through his nostrils, each mouthful being a disaster enough to burn the heart and lungs of an ordinary person. However, the sorcerer did not feel any discomfort. It was as if his lungs could change with the texture of the air at any time. Energy organisms. He thought. This is really amazing. He died once and is no longer a human. But he was reborn again. Nis felt his body, but it wasn't obvious yet. His brain cleared a lot and his body became lighter. But for now, it just made him more prone to falling. Besides, he can feel that the world is different. His eyes occasionally catch fleeting stars and faint dark red catkins in the air. Energy. This is something he has never seen before. He tried to catch up with the flying catkins and stars with his gaze, but they easily escaped from his sight again. It will take time. To observe, adapt, understand, and flexibly utilize until it can be manipulated at will. Nis looked at Aika, and Yenfoam respectfully lifted the hem of the demon's robe adorned with red stripes. The teacher should have reached the highest level long ago. Only then did he realize how terrifying the demon was and how lucky he was. The trap set in a plain crack can work, at least half of it is due to Cha Zheng's trance as he gazes at the sky. At that time, the demon was drifting freely by being pulled by a hunting dog, thinking about his latest research. There's one more thing. In half an ancient forbidden book without a cover, Ness once saw this statement. As is well known, all angels and demons are typical energy creatures. Although their energy fields and structures are exactly opposite, there are inevitably some similarities between the two. The ban on this book is precisely for this reason, and even colleagues from the Warlock Association, who are not acting properly, acknowledge that this statement is completely contrary and sneer at it. After all, in the human world, angels are spokespersons of justice, purity, and holiness, and are one of the objects of human longing and prayer. And demons are the embodiment of sin and ugliness. That forbidden book is right. There is still too much he doesn't know. For example, my current self. Did you become a demon? This is indeed a serious problem. Nice placed one hand in his arms and touched the thick leather spine of the Nine Faces One book, pondering whether to take the time to learn. The end of the world will not wait for him. The sorcerer instinctively looked towards Icha, only to see the demon master's expression indifferent. He didn't know why he was focused on staring at the disorderly pile of sharp teeth in front of him. The hell broadcast only worked on the object to be notified, and he couldn't see any other existence. Perhaps the teacher is trying to figure it out. Nice thought. He guessed right, so he was indeed trying to figure out a solution. Methods to prevent merging of 9 planes. He has already started to think of ways. The earliest way to jump into one's mind is naturally the simplest, most demonic, and most ruthless way. Find the son of chaos and kill him. If Bexibu wants to cause trouble and kill her. Find the Order Saint and kill him. If Archangel Gabriel tries to sabotage him and kill him. But this is clearly unrealistic. Although he does not know the specific situation of Gabriel, the demon king Bezeb has absolute suppression power over all other demons. The title of the king of demons comes from the recognition, obedience, fear, hatred, and submission of almost all other demons, and this directional collective will generate powerful forces attached to those who possess this title. Speaking of which, it is very similar to human beliefs. The king of all demons is equivalent to a god among demons. The other demons, in front of the demon king, have a power as insignificant as mortals. Yes, they can only listen to the radio. And the king of demons is the one who sends broadcasts, no matter how boring the content may be. So he immediately considered the second plan. Find the son of chaos and kill him. If Bexibu wants to get in the way, run. Find the Order Saint and kill him. If Gabriel wants to get in the way, run. You don't have to think too much to know that the second solution also has several obvious problems. The first question, according to Bezeb, the demon army has gathered and is ready to take action. If he loses the son of chaos in such a situation, Bezeb will not give up on it. Even Leonid, who loves to provoke conflicts the most, doesn't know how to do it. They will be even more excited instead. After thinking for a moment, I added a few more names to this excited list. Asmontis with 3 heads, Mappa with a heart-reading mind, Baptist who loves to take maggot baths, Wayne who destroys a city every day, Endos, the Harmony messenger, and most importantly, how Switzerland it's too long to list. They will not give up easily. And he is also unwilling to kill this unseen son of chaos, unless there is really no other way. In this special year of millions of years in hell, the legendary son of chaos was born within his lifetime, and he actually wanted to see it. This leads to the third plan, the product of ideological modification. Hide the son of chaos and the child of order, and then release the message. This can delay the search for a period of time. Compared to killing, if one finds out that the plain son is only missing, both sides may not be eager to go to war, but will instead engage in the search for the plain son. Although procrastination is always about facing the outcome. But maybe he had a better way then. There is a fourth option, starting from another perspective. Find a way to change the thoughts of the son of chaos and the child of order. Very idealistic, very ethereal. This gave rise to a fifth plan. Find a way to change the idea of a unified universe for Beelzebub and Gabriel. Forget it. The difficulty of this should be no less than killing them. Angels and demons have long and fixed lives, and these extreme creatures in their respective energy fields are different from humans, rarely changing their minds. Speaking of humans drawing inspiration from human thinking, he came up with a sixth plan. Thief and exchange of views on the sons of the plane between Bepper and Gabriel. Changing their level of belief in those ancient legends, keep an eye on the trembling fangs until they return to their original positions. Bexibu's chatter disappeared from his ears. He glared and his teeth shattered into a grayish-white ring. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Disaster Stone Floating Island, Demon Courtyard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Disaster Stone Floating Island, Demon Courtyard. I have decided to go directly to meet Bexibu. He hasn't made a choice yet, but it seems that all 6 options can start by facing Bezier directly. Of course, it's also possible to start by searching for the Son of Chaos. But it is obviously easier and more time-saving to face Bexibu directly. It is not an easy task to face Bexibu directly. He glanced at Nice. After thinking for a moment, he snapped his fingers and not far away, the top of a crooked cross-tongued willow was ignited by him, turning into a burning ball in the blink of an eye. Before this tree burns down, learn what I'm teaching you. The plain sorcerer had just turned the book to the second page and nervously raised his bewildered blue eyes upon hearing the words. Otherwise, you'll go back to my yard. Join them, said Icha. Ness's mouth tightened and he said, no problem. Shichi-si began to regret it a bit. But once again, she felt like she would make the same choice. The only problem now is that there are really some issues. Mainly the problem with Courtyard. He is basically in a state where he not only cannot take care of himself, but also infinitely interferes with her flight. Then there is the issue of distance. She didn't expect the courtyard of Icha to be so far away. Zakisi felt that she had flown over at least 40 thorny mountains with huge iron spikes and 15 basins emitting endless flames. She counted them and passed 6 swamps, 2 green, and 4 dark. On the surface of the 6 swamps, there are some twisted internal organs floating together. The bright red marrow stone in her mouth still emitted a signal, telling her to move forward, move forward. She felt like the top 2 wings were going to cramp, and the damn angel weighed 1,000 pounds. I really don't understand how such a heavy commodity can become an angel. It's all their problem. As for the loss of one's divine power due to being cut off from the faith energy of believers, it is just a small problem that adds insult to injury among a bunch of problems. It's okay. She can also use the innate fairy tricks in her instincts. And the remaining demonic power in the blood, which is the bloodline of the Hand of Destruction, Evo Mimi Father. Damn it. Her slender eyebrows twisted together. He didn't even want to hear her explain from beginning to end. In his eyes, she was just a naive, inexperienced, and weak little god. Because she didn't have enough strength, she didn't even have the opportunity to ask him to stay. This is the rule of demons, her mind flashed with the unquestionable tone of Iverman. I'll ask you one more time, are you going to be a demon, a fairy, or a god? If you're going to be a demon, forget what you're saying, and I'll recommend you to the Demon King and join me in battle. The playful saint licked the smoky marrow stone and gritted her delicate posterior teeth. At that time, she was unable to give an answer, and the demon, who was her father, sneered and left. But she is still here now. Iverm is now in the same plane as her. It's better for her to touch him, and it's better not to let her touch him. Forward, forward, forward down. Hey! The direction of the medullary stone has changed. Zakisi struggled to look down. Passing through Mars and turbulence, a red 3-layer disaster stone floating island was reflected in her pitch-black eyes. A crystal-clear spell dome was inverted on the floating island, shimmering with a faint green light. Looking down, the most eye-catching one is the 13 circular pools in the lower courtyard, resembling the eyes of ancient beasts. Each pool has a separate talisman seal, and the water of various colors remains calm and undisturbed under the constant scorching wind over the years. Tsukisi recognized that one of the pools was filled with ordinary water. The edge of the second floor of the floating island is surrounded by 12 evil or exposed statues of the black iron demon god. In Hicks's concept, such statues must have similar contributions in front of them, but all 12 statues are bare in front of them, and instead are painted with strange symbols. I don't know what kind of spell it is. The statue frames the entire second floor space, divided into irregular areas by a large number of brightly colored and densely packed circular stones. Those are slightly rougher pith stones. What is this doing? I don't know how much energy these pith stones contain. Tsukisi was secretly shocked and turned her gaze to the center of the floating island. There was a huge tower that ran vertically through 3 floors, made of red disaster stones and overflowed with black and red sulfur in the gaps. At the top of the tower stood a statue of 10 snakes. It seems that there are more than 10 clusters of reddish-brown things crowded together in front of the 3rd floor of the tall tower, blurry and unclear against the backdrop of the crimson disaster stone. The marrow stone in her mouth guided her to fly towards that place. Tsukisi tilted her wings slightly to change direction. Kikir's hand landed on her face, and she rudely knocked it off. The bright red pith stone began to dissipate energy, and the magic dome obediently rolled up a round opening for the playful saint to enter. Tsukisi breathed a sigh of relief and descended. The dozen or so clumps of reddish-brown wriggling things magnified clearly in front of her, with long horns, messy seaweed-like hair, and tails pressed under the same-colored dirty robe. Demons, many demons. Even by the standards of demons, their attire is strange enough. Demons do not wear robes, and this light, thin, and simple clothing that relies entirely on temperament is generally the choice of angels at this moment. The long-haired demons in robes are blocking the entrance to the iron gate of the tower and looking inside. Seemingly sensing the fluctuations of energy, a tall demon at the back lifted its head, and its dark green deep eyes looked towards Hicks. I should avoid contact with these guys. Tsukisi woke up with a chilling shock. It was too late, and the thick and dark door strongly attracted the direction of the pith stone in her mouth. Her 4 wings were tired and powerless, unable to pull her body higher. She mustered up her last bit of strength. The angel suddenly became mentally alert at this moment of disaster. He struggled to slide down. This shattered Hicks' final effort, pulling her wings apart and causing her to double down. Fall, all fall, go ahead. Go to your angel, go to your hell, go to your yard, go to my dad. Let's all go to yours. Tsukisi felt a helpless despair and then fell heavily in front of the demons with Kikir. Long-haired demons wearing robes surrounded, their faces painted with black hellish volcanic ash. If it weren't for their reddish-brown skin, Hicks would almost feel like she had seen the hobbling wanderers on the streets of the human king city. Countless impolite gazes swept around her. Tsukisi couldn't move and felt her entire spine break, but she tried to open her eyes wide and gaze at every demon who looked at her. My gaze withdrew a few times. Except for a shameless demon, the remaining demons began to discuss quietly. I haven't seen her before. Look at the feathers on her body. This bird's thighs must be delicious. But you have horns on her head. And she's also here to find the Duke. We can't eat her. What's going on next to him? He doesn't have any smell on him. And he looks like a person. He can't be a person, can he? Have you ever seen someone before? Just say they look like people. Just take a bite first and you'll know, he. A 4-pointed claw reached over, and the other claw knocked it down. It's the tall demon with dark green eyes, he's now standing at the front. His robe is cleaner than others, tied together with a feather-shaped gold button and embroidered with a 5-pointed star on the collar. Who are you? He said. End of this chapter.